Welcome to CNC-RP software, which provides automated process planning for CNC machining. If we look at the motivation for automated process planning, we consider a conventional machining process where, after the part design arrives, it's not uncommon to spend hours or days or more doing the process planning. This involves determining a set of orientations with which to machine the part, coming up with the fixtures that are going to hold that part throughout the machining cycle, choosing tooling, and of course generating NC code so that we can hit cycle start and generate a component. If you compare this to additive manufacturing, once that part arrives, that process planning is exceedingly shorter, maybe in a few minutes. With a perhaps a little bit longer cycle time, we get a part, and we might get several parts before you'd even begin the machining process. Of course, the problem is that many of the current additive manufacturing technologies can't hit the dimensional or surface finish requirements that a CNC machine can do. So what if we could do this for CNC machining? Is there a business case for this? Well, it depends on, most importantly, how many do you need? Are you going to use this for service parts or prototyping or short-run production? If I look at that conventional process, once I'm done, I'm going to be making parts fairly rapidly. And if I compare this to that alternative approach, there might be some cutoff with which this makes sense. The question is, how would we do this? CNC-RP takes an approach of machining parts about a rotary axis. We make parts from round bar, and we do removal operations about a series of orientations as opposed to a 3D printer that attempts to add metal in one direction. CNC-RP automatically chooses these orientations using a series of algorithms, chooses tooling, designs a set of support structures that keep the part attached to the stock throughout, even tells the user what diameter and length of stock and how to set up their machine. What this looks like is just inside a conventional CNC machine, piece of round bar fixtured between jaw chucks. The minimum requirement is to run with a single rotary with a live tailstock and brake. The preferred setup would be dual rotaries. And what this looks like is after just a few minutes of process planning, we can cycle start and machine a part from a piece of bar stock. Next up, we'll take a look at the CNC-RP software. Take a quick preview of the software. We're inside the MasterCAM 2018 environment. CNC-RP is a plugin that has its own toolbar within the CAM environment. So if a person is making a part with CNC-RP, they use this toolbar, which has a series of steps that work you through from CAD to NC code and setup sheet. When you load a part, we're going to load an IGES or step file. The part is automatically aligned with the rotary axis and centered inside the coordinate system, ready for process planning. The user can step through the 5 steps of CNC-RP or press the green flag button, which will lead them through automatically. The first step is to identify a proper rotary axis. CNC-RP has selected an optimal axis along what is currently the Z-axis, which has 100% visibility and a minimum stock size of 1.95. They could alternatively run a search, which will look through a series of orientations about the unit sphere and report back on the minimum diameter or the maximum visibility orientation. And if that doesn't work, the user can just test and identify an axis or rotation that they like better. We're going to go with the CNC-RP recommended axis or rotation and proceed. The user is going to be asked what material and critical tolerance call out is for this part, which will allow CNC-RP to automatically identify a set of sacrificial supports for machining the part and holding the part. If they don't like the specific location of the supports, they can move them around and finally accept their design. And now a set of CAD entities have been added, which are the sacrificial structures. The user is prompted to identify any setup orientations they feel they need if they'd like to put in a recommendation. Otherwise, CNC-RP will calculate the setup angles for hogging, roughing, and finishing operations. This is all done in the background through geometric algorithms. Stepping forward, the user identifies what machine they're going to use. They've previously selected aluminum, so we're going to use our aluminum stock library and tool sets. They decide whether they're going to do waterline with a flat mill finishing or ball milling operations. CNC-RP has identified the tooling for the hogging, roughing, semi-finishing, and ball milling operations, or the user can override these if they have a better perspective on what they want. Accepting that, the user is prompted that they can proceed to the shop, get a piece of 2-inch round bar at 9 3/8 inch long, and we're about to begin the toolpath generation process. So CNC-RP is taking over MasterCAM at this point and is going to identify the series of operations, both stock models and toolpath operations, and will guide MasterCAM through the rest of the process planning. So as you can see, through all the series of angles that have been identified previously using the tools that were identified and the stock material that was identified earlier, CNC-RP is going to step MasterCAM through and generate the requisite toolpaths and setup sheet, which will be found in the customer folder. Customer will go to the folder, they'll find their setup sheet for their part. Their setup sheet has a picture of the part they're going to make, the requirements for the stock material, the total estimated times for machining this part. It'll give them a view of what the stock setup should look like for this part. They can double check some things like where their work offsets are located and how much distance there is between their jaw chucks. Tells them the tool selection criteria and the set of tools that were chosen and the set of angles that were chosen for this part, and then of course the set of NC code to machine the part. Once completed, the user can load the piece of stock material, double check those settings, and cycle start and proceed with a lights out operation. Thank you for listening.